Welcome to the San Francisco Railway Museum. We are the advocates for the F-line and the streetcars and other historic vehicles that Muni has. We are a nonprofit. We survive on donations from our members, from the public. The proceeds from the museum all go towards supporting the organization. The San Francisco Railway Museum is located down near the Ferry Building. We are in the northwest corner of the One Hotel. And the right-of-way is called Don Shi Way in honor of the engineer that worked on the project. The address is 77 Stewart Street, between Market Street and Mission Street on Stewart. Stewart's the last cross street before the Embarcadero. What we're doing here today is kind of giving you a little taste of what we have here in the museum. We have a lot of small artifacts on display. Of course, the space is small enough if we fit one streetcar in here, that's all we could have. So we have no full-sized vehicles inside, but they run on the right-of-way right outside our front door. And those are the F-line cars that run every day on Market Street and the Embarcadero. So they pass by our door. It's a very convenient location to get to. It's an excellent location to observe the streetcars, the F-line cars, as they come down and they make the turn here from Stewart Street onto the right-of-way. And then the streetcars pass through and they go on down to the Embarcadero and they go to Fisherman's Wharf. One other thing we have, which is really fun, you can do this on your phone or on your computer. If you go to streetcar.live, you can see our streetcars in action all day, 24/7. And we've also added the option of checking on the cable cars as well, because all these vehicles now have GPS so they can be tracked. So if you want to know where your favorite streetcar is, if you're looking for the Baltimore car and you want to ride that one, you check our website, see if it's out today, and then you can see where it is on the line and go and meet it and take a ride. Our focus is on the transportation history in San Francisco, public transit history. And so I have to start with this panel here, which has examples of the early transit in San Francisco. And I have to say, it all started with the stagecoach. And anyone who has seen any Western movies knows what a bumpy ride a stagecoach was on that hard wooden seat. And someone realized at some point that it would make sense to take a stagecoach and put it on track, still pulled by horses, but on track, which made it a much smoother ride. And so what you're seeing here are variations of that, where you have a very early cable car, this one right here, or horse car, that's a horse car, and a couple of other horse cars. And eventually, Andrew Halliday came up with the idea of using the underground cable, and so then we have the cable car. And then eventually, when they realized that the electricity could be provided overhead with overhead wires and down the pole to the motors of the streetcar, then the streetcar became very popular. And in fact, cable cars only go about 9 miles an hour. When they first introduced the streetcar, it was going about 15 miles an hour, and people were swooning because it was going so fast. So it's a really interesting transition from very, very early public transit all the way to today. That's really what we're focused on. Just below the panel there, you'll see some equipment that was used by a San Francisco streetcar conductor prior to the 1906 earthquake. In that case, you have his punch, his coin changer, and his hat, and a couple of little books that were used for street guides to give people information. And the next case is corgi models of our beautiful streetcars. You can find your favorite. There are many more than what you see in that case. And coming up on the next case, this is my favorite, and this one is all streetcar tokens from all around the country. They were very popular in the 30s and 40s, and you'll find some really interesting ones from various parts of the country, and especially Oakland, California. We have a token from Oakland, California from 1871. It predates the cable cars. If you look carefully at it, you'll see that there's a horse car image on the token. So these other exhibits that you see here all relate to San Francisco's transit history, starting with the history of the rail And we have the fares that were started in 1912 with the 5-cent fare. And we have an exhibit on what the operators would have used in the 1960s, including coin changer, which of course they don't take cash anymore, but they used to make change. And you get a little further along, there's an explanation of transfers over the years and the explanations for how they worked. And you'll realize how incredibly complicated the transfer system was in the early years. Now you just flash your Clipper card and you're done. In the last exhibit on the left down there is paper buses. And it's a really fun hobby for kids. It's very inexpensive. You can make your own buses, and there's a beautiful display of them done by one of our members. And it's all Muni vehicles from the very early years.
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm a docent here at the San Francisco Railway Museum. And where I'm sitting is in the entrance mock-up of a 1911 streetcar. And we're going to go through and take a little tour of the appurtenances in the controlling end of a 1911 streetcar. And right here where I have my hand, this is a Johnson fare box. They were patented originally in 1914. There were several different versions. This one here is a manual one. There are also manual electric ones, and we have a various number of them on display in our museum. And how this works, passengers would board the rear end of the streetcar and they exited the front end. And they would pay with a nickel. It was a nickel fare back in the day, 1911. And you drop the nickel in, and if you listen, the bell rings. And the nickel falls on a trap door. The reason it sits on the trap door is so the conductor can verify that the proper fare was paid. And once he does that, there's a lever here that drops it down into a chamber. And there's a hand crank on the side. And on the front of the fare box are numbers. And it will register the fare. And you crank it, and then the numbers click, and the nickel drops, and the fare is paid. Now, in the actual use of these boxes, there was an open trap on the bottom where the conductor would take out the coins that went through. When he got the fare box at the car house when he went to work, they recorded the number out, they recorded the number in, and that's how much he had to turn in for the day's fares. Behind me is a mannequin with a authentic conductor's uniform, and he would be standing in this position right next to the fare box. The cars were loaded. They had inside, ladies and children would sit inside. Men would be on the outside because there's a sign up here that prohibits expectoration, because chewing tobacco was big back in the day, and the men would spit on the platform, and they tried to keep the car ends clean as possible. The conductor would be on the rear of the car, and once the fare was paid, there's a conductor's bell to signal the motorman. One bell means stop. Two bells mean go. This same system is still used today on the cable cars in San Francisco. Now, the front end of this car, these are the controls that the motorman would operate. And starting from the right side, we'll go from the right side to the left. This is the emergency brake. It has a ratchet catch on it and can be stopped, and that would be used in an emergency situation. Next to that is the air brake with the air brake gauge right here, and there's the different positions on the air brake for the amount of air pressure to stop the car. The gauge indicates the pounds of air. And then this handle here operates the gate. There's an open space on one end of our car, but here is a gate on this side that does not operate. But on the actual car, this handle, by moving this way and back, would open and close the gate for passengers to board or light on whatever end of the car they're riding. This on the floor is the gong, which would warn pedestrians or anybody that gets in the way of the car or vehicles. Then this is the General Electric controller. It's a K 26 GE controller. There's 3 positions on this smaller handle, which is forward, neutral, and reverse. Now when it's in forward, then the controller handle notches out 5 miles an hour at a time, up to a maximum of 25 miles an hour approximately, all the way to full speed. The earliest patent date on this particular one is 1896, and the latest patent date shown is 1904. Up above is the main circuit breaker switch that is on and off, that turns the power on and off to the car. And in the ceiling are just light bulbs. That's all they had. They just used regular incandescent light bulbs at the time for the lighting on the car and the headlights with a reflector behind it. And that's a rundown of how the car is operated. On the streetcars, people needed to know where they were going to go. And as the streetcar approached the island, there would be the roller sign in the front of the car that has a hand crank on the back. And it would say the destination of that car. And let me demonstrate some of the destinations, which are actual destinations in San Francisco. 13th Avenue only. 9th Avenue and Judah. The J would stand for Judah. Stadium, which could be Kezar Stadium, where the 49ers played later on. This would be Market Street only, meaning the car would only go to Market Street, not down Market Street. The SP Depot, which was the original F line that ran on 3rd Street. Golden Gate Park, which could be a 7 Haight streetcar or a 6 Masonic if it was going to turn back. Car house, meaning that it was going to the car house and not in service. Pool would refer to most likely Fleischacker Pool that was at the end of the L line by the zoo. 9th Avenue. 19th Avenue and Slope Boulevard, which would be the 12 line. Ferries, which would be the Ferry Building across the street from our museum. Ocean would be the N Judah more than likely. Take next car, meaning that this car was out of service or it's too full and not enough room for passengers, so it would alert the people on the island to take the next one. East Bay Terminal. This is the building that was opened in 1936, where the streetcars ran to. The key system, Sacramento Northern and Interurban Electric Railway from the East Bay, ran into the terminal. And that terminal was demolished a few years ago for the building of the new transit center. And that's it. That's the last sign on this roll. Now I'm standing in front of the mock-up of our 1911 streetcar number 105. And I want to point out to you how the ends are changed. This is a trolley retriever. This is the trolley rope. And up above is the trolley pole with the roller on the end of it. And it's a trolley wheel is what the roller is called. And at the end of the line, the trolley would be pulled down and put into the hanger on the roof of the car. And the other end of the car, this rope would be pulled, it would be released from the hanger and up to the wire. Below, next to the trolley retriever, is the dash lights, which would be incandescent lights at that time, and the headlight down here, which would be an incandescent bulb. Later on, with improvements coming, the trolley wheel was replaced by the trolley harp. And inside the trolley harp is an insert called a trolley shoe. And that shoe would glide along the wire. This is how it's done on the current F-line streetcars in San Francisco. And this is a sample of the copper wire. And so this would be put up against the wire like this, and the streetcar proceeds with this gliding across the wire.
We're looking at a model of a Market Street Railway streetcar, originally from the 1920s and then restored to 1940 configuration. Market Street Railway was the competitor to Muni, to San Francisco Municipal Railway, from 1921 to 1944. In 1944, Market Street went bankrupt and Muni bought them out, basically. They merged the two systems. But interestingly enough, Market Street Railway was bigger than Muni was. And so it's sometimes referred to as a hostile takeover because the Muni absorbed all these Market Street Railway people who really resented them. So it wasn't the best of mergers, but over the years, it became a real powerhouse of a transit system in San Francisco. The Market Street Railway shopman built the model to show San Franciscans what their streetcars were going to look like with this patented white front look. And the reason they painted the fronts of their streetcars white was so that the car would be visible in San Francisco on those foggy nights. And they actually went as far as Washington, D.C. to patent this whole white front look. When Muni bought out the system, they painted out the white front. Not entirely, but they added some other color to it because they weren't allowed to use that patented white front look. That was not there. Muni did not buy that patent. This amazingly detailed model was part of Market Street Railway's outreach, which included displays in store windows and other outreach to school kids. They had slogans that they had. The safest place to be on the street is on a streetcar, was one of their slogans that they used for kids. They also had another streetcar, which they called the San Francisco, which was the white streetcar that took kids on school field trips and was intended strictly for getting children to understand public transit. It was a very, very successful outreach. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the San Francisco Railway Museum, and if you want to know more, you can visit our website at streetcar.org. Streetcar.live shows you the F-line streetcars and the cable cars in action, live action. And if you are interested in a book about the F-line and the streetcars, we have our On Track, which is a guidebook for anyone who's infatuated with the F-line and the concept of the streetcars. It even has a life list in the back. And thank you for watching.